Hey, welcome back for our continual look at the X-Files. Today we're going to be looking at Oubliette, episode 8 of season 3, an episode that I had all but forgotten about. Oubliette debuted November 17th, 1995 on the Fox network and places Mulder and Scully on a case involving a missing girl and a woman who may be their only hope in finding her. This episode has one of the creepiest cold openings in the series yet. I would say only rivaled by Irresistible. Young 15-year-old Amy Jacobs is having fun during her school picture day. However, this is the 90s, so where's the fun laser background that we all had? Haha, that's much better. The photographer's helper, a creepy Carl Wade, gets chewed out for forgetting the film, but he has something else he's a bit more interested in. Yeah, like a ride through a wood chipper. Kids, this is how we made YouTube thumbnails before Photoshop. This entire sequence is so unnerving. That night while Amy is asleep, Wade enters her room through her window, but just how low is that window to the ground where he can just step in? Wade grabs the young girl and says no one is going to spoil us, while her sister just watches and does literally nothing. Meanwhile, at some fast food joint, Lucy Householder starts getting a nosebleed and drops to the ground.
Nobody's gonna spoil us.
Following Amy's abduction, Mulder arrives on the scene. Having lost his sister and even Scully to abduction, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he may take this case to heart.
I know you must be feeling...
I'm sorry. But how could you really know how I feel?
This lady has no idea. Mulder spots some blood on the carpet which came from Amy's nosebleed, but the real reason he's even there in the first place is because of the connection to Lucy. Amy's sister gave the police a vague description of what her sister's captor looked like, but it's what she heard him say that really triggers Mulder.
Nobody's gonna spoil us.
Nobody's gonna spoil us.
Seeing as this detective is lazy though, Mulder takes it upon himself to follow up with Lucy. Scully meets up with Mulder at the hospital where Lucy is being held, and it turns out Lucy had also been abducted. When she was 8 years old, she was taken and held captive in a basement for 5 years. Eventually she escaped, but her captor was never caught.
Look what I've been through all my life. I wouldn't want to wish on anybody. Doesn't mean I can make it any better for me or anyone else.
Lucy isn't exactly much help, but the trauma I'm sure she's had to endure, bringing up old wounds, probably isn't helping. Wade is stuck in the road with a flat tire, and I'm starting to get some Dwayne Barry vibes. Luckily for him, a tow truck just happened to be driving by, but Wade really just wants him to go away. I mean, really wants him to go away. You would think nearly being caved in with a tire iron would set off some alarm bells that maybe something isn't quite right.
Agent Malt, Lucy Householder. You get anywhere on that?
I'm working on it.
You've got one of my guys on the line. Says she's got a criminal record. Prostitution, narcotics convictions. She's done some time.
Lucy has something of a sordid history, but given what she's been through, it's hard not to see why. Even still, Mulder isn't ready to say that she had anything to do with Amy's disappearance, even if everyone else is. Scully comes in with an interesting development. The blood on Lucy's clothes had 2 different blood types, O positive, which is Lucy's blood type, and B positive, which just happens to be Amy's. Now this doesn't mean Lucy had anything to do with the abduction, but Scully is sending the samples in to be examined because she believes Lucy has something to do with this, while Mulder thinks Lucy is nothing but a victim.
What did you do to yourself?
It's dark. Why is it dark? I can't see.
Hold on.
At the halfway house where Lucy is staying, she appears to be experiencing everything that Amy is. The dark, the cold, even the abuse levied upon the young girl is appearing on Lucy's skin. Mulder makes his way to the halfway house because he looks to be the only one who actually thinks Lucy is a victim as well. He knows Lucy can see what Amy sees, feels what she does, and without Lucy's help, he might not be able to find her. Lucy is rather reluctant to help though, and I think she's more scared to confront what happened to her more than anything. But if she doesn't help, then young Amy might not have much time left. I don't want to think of what Carl's intentions are, but this shit sends chills down my spine.
Mulder, I've got to...
Go ahead, take a look at this.
Come in, Mrs. Merriweather. Over.
Is that Lucy?
Scully comes bursting in the room with some information that may break the case wide open. The school photos where Amy attends went out to everyone except for Amy's. On top of that, the photographer that took the photos fired his helper, one Carl Wade, the day after the photos were taken, so Scully thinks he may be their man. They also have a photo of Carl, so while Scully shows the photo to Amy's sister, Mulder's going to show it to Lucy. Wade leaves to probably creep on some more young girls when Amy notices some light coming from a window, which she is easily able to remove the planks boarding them up with her bare hands. That classic North American craftsmanship at work.
I just want to show you a photograph, okay?
Look at this photograph.
Lucy seems to recognize Carl, but this just sets her off running. Meanwhile, Wade returns just as young Amy pulls off the last board and makes a run for it. Lucy's connection with the young girl kicks in again, even falling down and feeling her pain when Wade catches up to her. It turns out Wade is also Lucy's abductor, and for some strange reason, she has a connection to Amy because of it. She can feel everything the young girl does, and it's like she's reliving her abduction all over again. Good guy Mulder does his best to console the woman, but Scully and the fun bunch arrive because Amy's blood was in fact found on Lucy's clothes, despite being 20 miles apart and Lucy being at work.
Blood on Lucy's uniform was an exact DNA match. Lucy was covered in Amy Jacobs' blood.
She didn't do it, Scully.
Before they can arrest Lucy though, she has already hightailed it. The detectives and Scully all think Lucy is involved because how else would she have the young girl's blood on her? Well, Mulder thinks Lucy bled it. You can see Scully eye roll into the back of her head, but honestly, she's been kind of a bitch this episode. She's ready to throw Lucy in jail along with Wade, but Mulder is adamant that the only connection they have is some psychotic transference, which is causing Lucy to manifest the blood and physical markings from Amy's abuse.
I have, and not everything I do and say and think and feel goes back to my sister. You of all people should realize that sometimes motivations for behavior can be more complex and mysterious than tracing them back to one single childhood experience.
Well, it looks like the tow truck driver pulled through because he gives them the location where he saw Wade. And wouldn't you know it, it's also the same area Lucy was found some 17 years ago. With this information, they drive like maniacs to where they believe he's got Amy locked up. But when they get there, it isn't Amy they find. Lucy has no idea why she's there. She has no memory of arriving, but all the detectives believe it's just more evidence of her guilt. You would think Scully would have Mulder's back after his sister's abduction, and her own, but she's been so cold about everything.
He hasn't touched her, not yet. He wants to, but he can't. It's why he takes the pictures.
This is so disgusting. I don't even want to think about what he wants to do, but again, wood chipper. It's only going to get worse for Amy though, because the closer they get to her, the more likely Wade is going to get violent. Lucy starts going into a coughing fit, saying that Amy is cold and wet, but when Mulder sits her in the car, he smacks her poor head off the door. Scully and the others come down to tell Mulder that they found Wade's car just north of their location, and Mulder thinks he's brought Amy to the nearby river, which would explain why Lucy said Amy was cold and wet. And of course, Mulder is right, because Wade is dragging the poor girl through the river trying to evade capture. But if he can't have her, then no one will. He starts drowning the girl and Lucy begins spitting up water.
Federal officer, hold her right there!
I'm surprised Mulder even hesitated. I don't think I would have the same restraint. They pull Amy's lifeless body from the water and begin CPR, which seems to be affecting Lucy as well. However, Scully, being a medical doctor, gives up almost immediately. Just looking online, it seems the average duration is somewhere between 20 and 25 minutes, so I don't know why Scully is so quick to stop.
Mulder, stop!
Seriously, what the hell is her problem? Just as all hope is lost, Amy spits up the water and comes to. But Lucy is another issue. EMS is working on her, but by the time Mulder arrives, she's already gone. Lucy somehow took Amy's death for her. Her lungs were filled with 5 liters of water, and Amy appeared to be completely unharmed. It's been a while since I've gone back and watched this episode, but it's a lot darker and more tragic than I remember. Lucy was just as much of a victim as Amy, and unfortunately there is no happy ending for her. They try and paint it like Lucy is at rest and has finally escaped Wade, but she lost her life, a life she never really had to begin with. She was abducted at 8 years old, found at 13, and then lived a life of drugs and prostitution because she didn't know how else to cope. Then when she finally appears to be pulling herself together with a job and staying clean, she gets dragged into this case, which only triggers everything again, and to top it all off, everyone thinks she's involved except for Mulder. Lucy really is a tragic character, and I don't think she got her happy ending. I don't know what stick Scully had up her butt the entire episode, but you would think with everything that has gone on, especially with what she went through, she would be a little more sympathetic to the whole thing, but she comes off as very cold. At the end, she tries to be all heartwarming, but if not for Mulder's persistence, then both Lucy and Amy would have most likely lost their lives. Oubliette has a 7.6 on IMDb, and I'm leaning somewhere between a 7 and an 8. It's a lot better than I remember, and even though Tracy Ellis, the actress who played Lucy, was a little uneven at times, I still think she did a good job as the tragic character. Oubliette was written by Charles Grant Craig, his only writing credit for the series. Though he would serve as supervising producer for a few episodes, he would leave the series before filming on this episode even began. In his original draft, Lucy had more of a hard edge to her. However, when Tracy came aboard, the character was turned into more of a damaged victim. Fox was a little worried about the original draft, as Amy was set to be a 12-year-old girl. The main reason for this concern was because around this time, a real-life case of the abduction and murder of 12-year-old Polly Hannah Class was still fresh in the minds of the general public. On October 1st, 1993, Polly was abducted at knife point from her mother's home during a slumber party and then strangled to death by Richard Allen Davis. Because of this, Fox had them change the age of Amy from 12 to 15, despite actress Jewel Staite that played Amy only being 13 at the time. Producers felt she looked older than she was, and they even touched her up a bit with some makeup to give her the appearance that she was older than she really was. Another issue with the episode was where they would film Wade's house. The script called for a log cabin in the middle of nowhere, but the producers needed somewhere closer to the studio. They settled on Mount Seymour, the same spot they used for the mountains in the episode Ascension. It had a parking lot and a log cabin nearby. The only issue is the cabin had a ski lift, so they had to shoot around it. On top of this, they also had issues with rain. For the climax, they chose to shoot at the Seymour River because it was felt to be the safest choice. However, because of rising waters from all the rain, the crew had to move filming a few days into shoot, which cost them several days of production and a good chunk of money. Things only got worse as the costumes the actors were wearing had to be replaced after each and every take, which only wasted more time and money. Director Kim Manners had a pretty awful time during the shoot, and in the book X Marks the Spot on location with the X-Files, he said, "It couldn't be fucking worse." I'm not sure what happened when filming, but Kim also didn't notice the numerous times someone's reflection was caught in a car door. Michael Chieffo played the very creepy Carl Wade. He's a working actor going all the way back to the 1981 series Lou Grant. No real big roles to speak of, but lots of small background characters or small supporting roles. Although he does play Dad in Herpes Boys, so there's that. He's apparently best known as being married to actress Beth Grant, because when you look him up, that's literally one of the first things to pop up. Jewel Staite played the young Amy Jacobs. On her memory of filming the episode, she said, "I do remember the man, Michael, who played my kidnapper was so lovely and so concerned that I would feel scared of him, I guess, or uncomfortable around him, that he made an effort to be very sweet and warm with me, which my mom appreciated. I think my mom thought it was really classy of him." Jewel has something of a cult following. She was in the short-lived Firefly, which Fox canceled after one season, but did have a feature film called Serenity. She's also appeared in 33 episodes of Stargate Atlantis. These days, she can be found on the show Family Law as Abigail Bianchi. Canadian actress Tracy Ellis plays Lucy Householder, and beyond this episode, she really hasn't done much. In fact, the very next thing she does is the Season 9 episode Audrey Polly. She had some small roles throughout her career, but after her stint on the X-Files, she seemed to have just disappeared. Maybe acting just wasn't something she wanted to pursue anymore, I have no idea, but whatever she's doing now, I just hope she's well. Oubliette is a pretty dark episode. There really isn't a happy ending, even though the young girl does survive. The real tragic character, Lucy, does not. Still, though I do recommend the episode, just know there really isn't any fun to be had. Next up, we dive back into the mythology as Mulder discovers a tape that may show the autopsy of an extraterrestrial, in the episode, Nisi. So what do you think of Oubliette? I think its darker tone may keep it from being a fan favorite, but I would love to know your thoughts. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you're doing well, and as always, stay spooky.
A young girl is abducted by a killer.
Why are you doing this?
And the only clue is an eyewitness who saw the whole thing in her mind.
You can actually feel what she's going through.
A brand new X-Files.
She's not gonna make it.
She has to make it.
Friday at 9, 8 Central.